The Crew 2 is the most ambitious open world racer of all time, ever, bar none. Yes, welcome back to the channel, fellas. Welcome back to some more discussions around the Crew 2 on the road to the actual launch of the game. And as you saw by the actual thumbnail, as you saw by the title, I have put out an extremely bold statement here in what I've said, and I'm going to use this video as an opportunity to actually explain my point in a way that hopefully makes a lot of sense to you guys to understand exactly where I'm coming from and the reasons as to why I feel this way. Now, as car fanatics, as racing game enthusiasts, it doesn't matter if you're into open world action racing adventures or if you're into track-based sims. When these games come out, we always seem to have the exact same mindset when it comes to what we look for in terms of criticisms. One of the most common criticisms for racing games, and one of the areas that are put under most high scrutiny, are the physics. When it comes to racing games, physics are pretty much everything to everybody. I can't think of a single racing game that has come out in the past 10 years where every single person has been universally happy with the actual physics, the way the cars handle, the way the cars react to collisions, etc. Now, aside from the physics, the second thing that most people like to scrutinize, constructively criticize, or sometimes aggressively criticize, is the graphical fidelity of these games, such as the frame rate, such as the draw distance, etc. So bearing those two factors in mind, what I'm going to do now is explain my points as to why the Crew 2, in my opinion, is the most ambitious racing title in terms of the prospective product that these guys are looking to put out. By these guys, I mean Ivory Tower. Now, when it comes to physics, the general consensus that I've been picking up over the years is that the biggest concern normally comes from the actual handling models of each cars within a game and how they differ from car to car. So, for example, you don't expect a Ford Focus to handle the same way as a Ford Mustang. You wouldn't expect a Ferrari 458 to handle the same way as, say, a Subaru Impreza. There has to be clear differences. There has to be clear structural, characteristical changes in the way in which those cars react to certain situations. You would expect classic muscle cars to have more weight to them. You would expect drift-eccentric JDM cars to be more tail-happy at the back. You would expect a car with a straight 6 engine to have a smoother ride than that of a V8. So it's fair to say, and it stands to reason, that the more cars you have in your game, the bigger the job you have in terms of ensuring that you've got the correct, or as close to correct as possible, a handling setup for each individual car in question. And as racing games become more realistic and more modern, we expect there to be a greater degree of differentials between different car types and the way in which they handle. So for example, if you were to play, I don't know, Need for Speed Underground 1 and take a Mitsubishi Eclipse and put it up against an AE86, one's all-wheel drive, one's rear-wheel drive, you would expect both cars to handle differently. But due to the fact that there's more advances in technology in 2018 than there was back in, I think it was 2002, don't quote me on that. If you put those two cars together in Need for Speed Payback, which I know they're not, but let's say they were, you would expect the differences in their handling models to be even more apparent, which, as you would expect, would take a greater degree of modeling, a greater degree of whatever maths-based wizardry they need to do, a greater degree of research and fine-tuning. So, if we look at some of the more recent racing titles that have come out, and I'm talking about open world action adventure racing titles that have come out over the past, say, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. Need for Speed Payback has got cars. The Crew 1 has got cars and a few bikes. Need for Speed 2015 has got cars. Need for Speed Rivals has got cars. Hot Pursuit has got cars. Midnight Club has got cars and some bikes. Test Drive Unlimited has got cars. Forza Horizon 3, 2 and 1 all have cars. Switch the focus back to the Crew 2, cars, boats, planes, bikes. Now here's the thing, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a developer, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but one thing I do have is something known as common sense. And when I apply my common sense to this situation, it doesn't take a genius to understand or even work out the fact that if you've got a game whereby it is centrally focused around cars only, your whole vehicle list is made up of cars. Yes, there are differences that you're going to have to work towards in ensuring that you've got different handling setups for different cars, but the common denominator is the fact that the basis of your handling model is set up for cars, which in my mind is far easier than if you've got to then go and make a brand new complete physics engine to accommodate bikes, to accommodate planes, to accommodate boats, And obviously it's not just the actual physics surrounding the actual vehicles themselves, it's the way in which the environment, like the turbulence within the actual air itself when you're flying a plane, the actual ripples within the actual water, you've basically got to make water-based physics to accommodate the boats, dirt-based physics for the motocross, etc. There's a very good reason why, if you've got a driving license, that does not qualify you to be an air pilot, because flying a plane is completely, there is no similarity whatsoever. Riding a motorcycle has no comparison whatsoever to riding a boat. So when you look at it on those aspects alone, it's very fair to say that the Crew 2 has a far more ambitious job to do by way of programming physics on a per vehicle basis. But here's the thing, it gets deeper than that, because if we just look at the car list alone, forget planes, forget boats, forget bikes, let's just look at the cars alone. The difference between the Crew 2 and pretty much all of the other games that I mentioned earlier on is that the Crew 2 will have a deeper berth, a wider pool, if you want to call it that, of different types of vehicles classed as cars within what can be considered a car class. Let me explain what I mean by that. There will be street cars for the street racing. There will be DTM cars for the track racing. There will be Alpha Formula cars for high performance track racing. There will be off-road trophy trucks for obviously off-road purposes. No other racing game to my knowledge, and none from the list that I mentioned, has got that much variance, that much variety. And if we go back to the point of physics, a street tuned Toyota Supra, not saying the Toyota Supra is going to be in the game, just using it as an example, but a street tuned Toyota Supra is not going to handle the same as an Abarth monster truck. An off-roading trophy truck is not going to handle the same as a Mercedes DTM car. The physics are going to be different. This is a gargantuan, and I've never used that word before in my life, but it is an absolute behemoth of a job the guys over at Ivory Tower have got to do here. And it gets even deeper than this, because what you've got to understand is that the same can be applied to the actual bikes, the boats and the aircraft. If you look at the bikes, a KTM dirt bike is going to handle completely differently and will have to be programmed, tuned, rendered, and have a totally different handling model to a Kawasaki street bike, which is a super bike if I'm not mistaken, and that's going to handle totally differently to the Indian Chief, which is more akin to being a classic heavy duty sort of Harley Davidson style. Listen, when it comes to physics based handling models, this task is huge. When it comes to graphics, it stands to reason that the more you have going on and the larger the map, the more polygons are needed to be rendered, which in turn requires more powerful hardware to avoid stuttering caused by frame rate drops. Here's the thing, the Crew 2 will have the second biggest map of any open world racer to date. And I know that because they're still using the same map of the USA, which again was the second biggest map. And it was second only to the map used in the game Fuel, which came out back in 2009. But here's the thing, the Crew's map is more ambitious, and I'm going to explain why. Take the open world map of Fuel, take all the open world maps used in Need for Speed, take all the open world maps used in the Test Drive Unlimited series, as well as any other open world racing game you can think of, and they all have something in common. They all have a similar theme. They are all rendered at ground level. What I mean by that is we've already established the fact that those games all focus on ground-based vehicles. The Crew 2, on the other hand, has got planes, which is obviously a vehicle that utilizes sky space. So what you effectively got is a situation where you're going to have to actually build the game from a point of view of being in the sky. You're going to have to render the tops of buildings. You're going to have specific rendering done for the clouds. You're going to have different types of draw distances in the sky in comparison to the draw distances that you would have on the ground. Not only that, but as I mentioned earlier on, the more things you've got going on at any one given time, the more demand and more taxing it's going to be on the actual processors being used on the hardware the game is being played on, be it console or PC. The Crew is an MMORPG, meaning that you're going to have people in your lobby who are flying planes in the sky, you're going to have people who are in the sea on their jet boats, you're going to have people that are on their bikes, and people who are obviously within their cars in-game on road surfaces, all happening at the exact same time. What this effectively means is that the map doesn't just have width, it actually has height, it has depth, it has perspective, activity going on at ground level, activity going on at sky level, and activity going on at sea level. 3 different levels, all coexisting together in the same game world with intense activity happening on each individual level at the exact same time. The best analogy to use is comparing the Crew 2's map to, say, a multi-story shopping mall. If you're on the ground floor and that shopping mall has got, say, 3 floors, just because you're on the ground floor and you can't see what's going on the top floor, does that mean nothing's going on the top floor? Does it mean the top floor's empty? No, it doesn't. Of course, there's activity going on the top floor, the ground floor, the middle floor. Whereas in comparison, all the other open world races are more like a single story shopping mall, which only has 1 floor, flat surface, less activity. In my head, it stands to reason that the level of software optimization that is going to be required by Ivory Tower to get this project running smoothly with minimal frame drops is going to have to be we're talking world-class levels of programming here, fellas. We're talking a hugely ambitious task, and those are the 2 reasons, the 2 big reasons as to why I feel the Crew 2 is the most ambitious open world racing game to date. So as always, guys, you know me, I'm very much interested in knowing what your thoughts are, what your views, what your opinions are. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there other factors that I've missed out that actually add to my argument? You know, personally, when I think about it, I'm actually happy. I'm even more happy that they pushed the game back, because I can only imagine the types of problems they must be encountering when trying to put the Crew 2 together, given the fact that it's such a huge task. But anyways, if you're enjoying the Crew 2 content that I'm putting out, the discussional videos, etc., be sure to hit the like button. If it's your first time around here, I wish you a BOURNE welcome. Swing the damn hell out of the notification bell and subscribe so you know exactly when the next video drops. And I will see you when the next video comes out. Take it easy. Peace.